Foam core, illustration board, and Bristol board are invaluable materials that are inexpensive and very easy to work with. They are used in a variety of design industries to create three-dimensional models in many scales quickly and cheaply. Architects use it to create mock-ups of buildings and interior spaces. The film industry will use it as well for the same purpose, to develop set interior and exterior spaces, and also to mock up physical props as well. As an industrial designer, you will use these materials alone or combined with each other to help bring your design ideas to life very quickly. It's the first time your ideas get a physical form. It will help you determine the scale of your design, the relationship of design features to each other, ergonomics, and the positioning of handles and buttons without spending a lot of money and time. It's easy to get these materials as they are sold in many locations and often sold together. They are inexpensive and no special tools are required to manipulate them. Foam core is made up of two materials, a soft foam in the center that is sandwiched between two pieces of heavy paper. It comes in many thicknesses. Choose the one that is appropriate for your model size. Foam core is available in two surface finishes, a matte finish and a glossy finish. Do not get the glossy finish. The glues and paints you will use will have a hard time adhering to this glossy surface. This is illustration board. It is a very thick and heavy cardboard that is very popular for artists to paint on. It comes in a few thicknesses and many color and surface textures. Stick with the matte surface finish and white or black color sheets as they are the most useful and easy to get. Bristol board. You know it, you love it. Thousands of science fair projects get stuck to it every year, and it's also a great tool to add finer detail to your sketch model. It cuts, glues, and paints very well. This is the thinnest material you will most likely use. It's not very structural, but it can be used to skin models and add very thin surface detail. Just avoid the glossy finish version. Always stick to the matte finish versions of all of these and you will be fine. The tools we need are very basic. A steel ruler, cork back is best. A utility knife. This will do a bulk of the cutting. Get a good one. Don't buy cheap, they don't last. A hobby knife. This is great when you really need a lot of control for fine detail cutting. You will definitely need a ton of replacement blades. Foam core is very abrasive on the knife blades, and you will need to replace them often. Let's cut some foam. First, make sure your blades are new and razor sharp. Dull blades will not work and are frustrating to cut with. Foam is thick, so you cannot cut straight through in one go. You should always do multiple passes, going deeper each pass. Keep the knife as vertical as possible. With a sharp knife, it's easy. You should get a clean, smooth edge with no tearing or ripping. Here is a cut I made earlier with a dull knife. You could see all the ripping and tearing of the foam and paper. This is not what you want. If you need a straight cut, don't freehand it. Use the ruler to rest the blade of the knife against it while you cut. This will give you the straightest cut and help keep your knife very vertical. This works for both the utility and the hobby knife. I'm going to show you some of the most common cuts you're going to use to make models with foam core. First, we need a bunch of strips to practice on. I wish it was always that easy. Let's start with the easiest way to bend a piece of foam core. This is great for making boxes or any enclosed structure. I'm using a square to guarantee a 90-degree cut on this strip. You can do this with a ruler as well if you don't have a square. Keep the blade as vertical as possible and use multiple passes to cut. Make sure you do not go all the way through. This is very important. We are not cutting through, we are bending. You can see I did not go all the way through. I stopped at the paper on the bottom. Now, gently bend the foam at the cut line. This creates a nice rounded corner. When you cut more lines like this, you can create simple boxes with very clean corners and very little gluing. Here is another way to make corners for a box. Draw two parallel lines that are the thickness of the foam core. With a ruler or square, cut most of the way through again on all the lines. Push down and flatten the foam in the cut and gently bend. This gets you a nice rounded corner. The wider you space these, the rounder the corner. Here's how you make sharper corners. Draw parallel lines again. We are going to cut an angle now, and we want to connect the two lines at the bottom in the center of the lines, creating a triangle. You can draw this in if you want, and it may help you to visualize the cut. This cut is more difficult. You're going to have to angle your blade at about a 45-degree angle to cut down to the center. This cut is one of the more difficult ones to make. You're going to have to angle your blade at a 45-degree angle and cut down to the center and then remove the material, freeing up the space for the bend. You may want to practice this on a scrap piece before attempting this on your final piece. Take your time with this cut. You can ruin it and wreck your project if you rush it. Your goal is for a nice V shape when the cut is done. This will give you a sharper corner when you bend it. There will come a time when you need to glue two pieces together to make a corner. You don't want to leave many exposed foam edges in a model. That doesn't look very professional. So here is one easy way to hide them. Use a piece of foam to trace the thickness onto the very end of your piece where you want to glue it together. You're going to cut almost all the way through again until you reach the paper on the other side. Then, use your knife blade to slowly start to pick away the foam you just cut. Use the back side of the blade to gently scrape away any leftover residue of foam. There should just be the clean back of the paper left. This will allow you to glue two pieces together without having an exposed edge. Once the glue has dried, you can cut away any overhang left behind. This will create a nice sharp 90-degree corner. Here is another way to connect pieces together that is very strong. It starts with parallel lines, the thickness of the foam. Carefully cut down to the other sheet of paper, but not all the way through. Pick out the foam carefully and clean out the U-shaped channel until it's smooth. You should have a nice channel the same width of the foam core sheet. Don't cut this too wide, you want a nice snug fit here. This will allow you to glue a piece into the middle of another piece and not have any witness lines on the outside. It also makes for a very strong glue joint. This will come in very handy when building large models, as it provides a good interior structure. Let's see these techniques in action. Here is a simple cube made from all of these cuts we just discussed. The main body is one piece with 45-degree cuts on all the corners. When we put them together, you get a nice sharp edge. It has a lap joint at the end for connecting and only one glue line. The top and bottom have a lap joint as well to create a lid feature that caps both ends to hide the exposed foam edges. This will create a clean, slick look. Let's make some curves. If you need to cut round or curved surfaces for your model, here's how. Figure out how big of a curve you will need, and then cut evenly spaced slots almost all the way through the foam core to the bottom sheet, but make sure you do not go all the way through. Once you've drawn in all your cut marks, make sure your knife is very sharp, and then start cutting. Gently begin to roll back the foam core to crack all the cuts, and your curve will begin to reveal itself. Be very careful here not to get too aggressive. It's very easy to rip the paper and ruin the curve. Then you'll have to start all over. You can keep the cuts on the outside to show a texture in your model, or you can skin them with Bristol board later. That's totally up to you. Or you can put them on the inside and then gently squeeze it together until you get the curve you want. This leaves a nicer surface on the outside. To determine how much of the foam core you'll need to score to create the arc, you don't need to know a ton of math formulas. All you need is the length of half the circle. I will use this string to demonstrate. Find the midpoints of the circle and then place your fingers with the string on those points. When you straighten it out, that's the length you need. You could transfer that information to the foam core. Then you want to score the lines evenly spaced out, and that should give you the arc you're looking for. When making curves, the amount of slices makes a huge difference in the final shape of it. The more cuts you have, the closer the circle is to round. Less cuts gives you a bigger arc. Removing every other slice on the inside will allow you to make a tighter curve with less cuts, but it will also leave you with a messier outside surface. You should plan this all out ahead of time before you start cutting, because once you start cutting, there's no going back, and you will have to remake the parts again with a fresh piece. Let's look at illustration board and Bristol board. These are not as complicated as foam core. In fact, they are very easy to work with. It's just like cutting thick paper. Illustration board is stiff cardboard and it's not very flexible, but great for structure or thinner detail pieces for your model. It's very tightly packed and has a thickness. It's easily cut with a utility knife or hobby knife. You must do it in multiple passes because of how dense it is. Don't try and cut through in one slice. Again, a sharp knife gives you the best edge. Bristol board is the easiest to work with. It's very flexible and has some structure because it's thicker than regular paper. A sharp utility knife makes easy work of the cut. This one you can do in one pass. If you need really thin surface detail, this stuff is great because of its thickness, flexibility, and wide range of colors. Now that all the cutting's out of the way, we need to glue this stuff together. PVA glue is the best adhesive for these materials. It's water-based glue, so easy cleanup and can be thinned out if needed. You can get this at most of the big box hardware stores and art supply shops. It comes out of the tube real thick, which is great because it stays where you put it and it doesn't run or drip. You can apply it in a number of ways, like a paintbrush, skewers or toothpicks, or straight out of the tube. It also dries crystal clear, which is great because other glues leave a yellow tinge behind. Let's start with foam core. Apply a small amount onto the area you want to glue together. A paintbrush or toothpick works great for spreading it around. Don't use too much or it will ooze out everywhere and make a mess when you put the pieces together. Make sure you rinse out the paintbrush immediately after you're done, or it will cure on the bristles and go rock hard. Place the two pieces together and then put it aside and wait for it to cure. Make sure you completely coat both surfaces thoroughly for best adhesion. If you're stingy with the PVA, you won't get a good bond. If you apply too much, it gets very messy and will take a lot longer to cure. Some pieces may need clamping of some kind to hold it together while curing. Glow stick masking tape or elastic bands make great clamps or holders for this task. Have both handy when doing a lot of gluing. As mentioned before, PVA is an all-purpose adhesive that will stick many different types of materials together. And because it dries clear, it will leave little to no evidence behind. The last thing you want is messy glue joints all over the model detracting from your design. So when building your sketch model, this all-purpose glue is one you want in your toolbox. Once the PVA cures, you can see that it's quite strong. While it's drying, keep your model in a warm room for the best results. If your workspace or the area you're gluing in is too cold, like a basement or a garage, it will take the glue a lot longer to set up. Let's put all this knowledge to work. I'm going to take all the materials we spoke about and do a quick model. I won't narrate this because I've already talked about all the techniques, so just watch and enjoy. See you at the end. So there you have it. With some simple materials and easy cutting techniques, you can take your sketches off the page and put them in your hands. The techniques are easy. The more models you make, the better and faster you will get at it. Get some sheets and start cutting and see what you can create. Thanks for watching.